The little girl was hiding behind a coolant pipe, and she had blood on her sleeve that was not hers. I froze with my wrench halfway to the wall panel. My name is Daniel Carter, and I am the only human licensed to do repair work on Vale Tarn Station. I have been doing this job for 6 years. In 6 years, I have never once seen a Cathari child this deep in the maintenance tunnel. Children of that species do not come down here. They are not allowed. The air is too dry for their skin, and the noise of the machines hurts their ears. This child was small, maybe 6 years old. In their counting, her skin was the pale silver color of moonlight, and her eyes were the deep blue of every royal portrait I had ever walked past on the upper decks. Around her forehead sat a thin band of woven white metal. I knew that band. Every person on the station knew that band. It belonged to Princess Lyrie Vin, the heir to the Coral Throne. I was a human alone in a service corridor with the most protected child in the entire star sector. She saw me, and her whole body went stiff, her hands pressed flat against the pipe behind her like she was trying to push herself through the metal. Her chest moved fast under the torn silk of her ceremonial robes. I held up both hands. I dropped the wrench. It clattered loud on the deck plates, and we both flinched. "It is okay," I said in trade tongue, the slowest and gentlest words I had. "It is okay. I'm not going to hurt you." She did not move. She did not speak. She just stared at me with those wide blue eyes. Then I heard the footsteps. They were coming from the long corridor behind me, the one that led back up to the royal wing. The footsteps were heavy, and even they were not the careful steps of the royal guard. The royal guard wears soft boots when they walk near the royals. These boots were armored. These boots belonged to soldiers who did not care if anyone heard them coming, because they did not expect anyone left to hear. The little girl heard them too. Her face changed. The fear in her eyes turned into something much worse. It turned into the look a child gets when she has already seen a bad thing happen, and she knows the bad thing is about to happen again. "Please," she whispered. The word was in broken trade tongue, and her voice was so small I almost missed it. "Please, they killed Mama Kessa. Please hide me." My brain went very quiet. I did not think about politics. I did not think about laws. I did not think about the fact that I was a human contractor, and she was a royal heir, and the entire station was about to lose its mind. I thought about a crying kid in a hallway. That was all. I crossed the 4 steps between us. In less than a second, I scooped her up under the arms. She weighed almost nothing. I tucked her against my chest, opened the side flap of my big work harness, and slid her down inside it. The harness was made for tools and spare parts and emergency gear. It was big enough for her if she pulled her knees up. I felt her small fingers grab the inside of my shirt. "Be quiet," I whispered. "Do not move." I picked up my wrench. I turned around. I started walking back the way I had come, like nothing was wrong. The footsteps were close now. I counted them 4 sets, maybe 5. I kept my head down and my breathing slow. 2 soldiers came around the bend. They were Cathari. They were tall, almost 2 heads taller than me, and they wore the deep red armor of House Voresh. House Voresh was the regent's house. The regent was the princess's uncle. I felt the small fingers tighten on my shirt. The lead soldier stopped in front of me. He looked down, his face was blank. "Human," he said, "what are you doing in this corridor?" "Coolant junction repair, sir," I said. I kept my voice tired and bored. I have learned in 6 years on this station that the best way to handle Cathari soldiers is to act like a piece of furniture. Permit number 447. The master of works sent me down. The soldier stared at me for a long moment. His eyes moved over my harness. They paused on the bulge against my ribs. "What is in your harness?" "Coolant valves, sir. New ones, the old one's cracked." The fingers on my shirt were shaking. Now I could feel her whole small body trembling against me. If he asked me to open the harness, it was over. I had nothing, no weapon, no backup, nothing. The second soldier behind him spoke in fast Cathari. He was telling the first one to hurry up. They were looking for something. They did not have time. The first soldier breathed out through his nose. He waved a hand at me. "Move, human. Get out of this corridor. If we see you down here again today, you will be detained." "Yes, sir." "Thank you, sir." I walked. I did not run. I did not look back. I walked at the slow, tired pace of a man at the end of a long shift. I walked until I turned the corner, and then I walked some more because I knew Cathari hearing was sharp, and they would notice if my steps changed. When I reached the next junction, I ducked left into a narrow access tube and finally stopped. The little girl pushed her head out of the harness. Her face was wet with tears. She had not made a sound about. She had cried silently the whole time. A child should not know how to cry silently. Child should never have learned that skill. "You are safe," I whispered. "I have you." She did not say anything. She just reached up and put both her arms around my neck and held on. That was when the station alarm started. It was not the normal alarm. It was the special one. It was the 3 short bursts and 1 long burst. That meant a royal emergency. Every screen on the station was about to flash the same message in 3 languages, and every guard on the station was about to be looking for one specific face. I knew before the message even finished playing that the face was going to be mine. The voice came through the corridor speakers. It was calm and clear and rehearsed. "Attention, attention. The royal heir has been taken. The suspect is a human male. Contractor identification 447. Daniel Carter. The suspect is armed and dangerous. The suspect has the heir. Do not approach. Report sightings to Royal Guard immediately. Use of stopping force is authorized." I leaned my head back against the wall of the access tube. I closed my eyes for 1 second, just one. The little girl's arms were still around my neck. Use of stopping force authorized was a polite way of saying nobody cared if I made it back alive. I opened my eyes. I looked down at her. Her blue eyes were looking up at me, and they were full of something I could not quite name. It was not fear anymore. It was something quieter, something like trust. "I am not a brave man. I'm a maintenance contractor. I fix coolant pipes. I rewire panels. I eat instant noodles in my bunk, and I read old books on my data slate, and I send half my pay home to my sister on a small green planet very far from here. But I had a child in my arms, and her uncle was trying to make sure she never grew up, and I was the only person on this whole shining station who knew what was really happening." "All right," I whispered to her. "All Right, sweetheart, we are going to be. Okay, we just have to be smart. She tucked her face into my shoulder. Her circlet pressed cold against my neck. I thought about the layout of the station. I thought about every tunnel, every shaft, every forgotten corner I had crawled through in 6 years. I thought about every camera I knew the location of, and every camera I had personally taped over because the master of works wanted me to work in private. I thought about the long way around to the consulate level, the cargo bays, the docking arms. Then I thought about the message that had just played. The whole station was hunting me. Every face I passed was a danger. Every door was a trap. But they were hunting a man with a child in his arms. They were not hunting a tired contractor pushing a tool cart. I put her back inside the harness. I pulled the flap closed over her. I picked up my wrench and clipped it to my belt, and then I picked up the wrench. My mind, too, the small, simple human tool that says I am not a hero, I am not a soldier, I am just a guy with a job to do. Listen to me, I whispered to the harness, you are going to be very quiet, you are going to be smaller than you have ever been. I am going to walk us out of this corridor and into a place where I can hide you better. And no matter what you hear above your head, no matter what people say about me, you do not make a sound, do you? Understand? A small nod against my chest. Good girl, what is your name, just so I know? A whisper, Liari. Hi, Liari, I am Daniel, I am your friend. Now friends help each other, we are going to help each other today. Another small nod. I took a long breath. I stepped out of the access tube. The corridor was empty for now. I started walking toward the lower service lifts. My boots felt very loud. On the deck, my heart was beating in my throat. I could feel her warmth against my ribs and her small, steady breathing. And I thought about how light a child is, and how heavy the responsibility for that child becomes the moment you pick her up. Halfway down the corridor, a door slid open ahead of me. A Kithar guard stepped out. He was alone. He was tall and pale, and his weapon was already in his hand. He saw me and his eyes went wide, and he raised the weapon. Stop where you are, he said. I stopped. I held up my empty hands very slowly. I am unarmed, I said. He took 2 steps closer. His weapon stayed pointed at the middle of my chest. I could see his finger on the firing pad. I could see the small red light blinking on the side of the weapon. That meant it was charged and ready. Where is the heir? He said. I do not have her, sir. Open your harness. The world went very small. I thought for one wild second about lying, about fighting, about throwing my wrench at his head. None of those things would work. He was faster than me, and his weapon was already charged. So I did the only thing I could do. I looked him in the eyes and I said, something true. Sir, please, I am asking you one person. To another, I do not know who you are. I do not know what house you serve, but there is a child in this harness, and her uncle is trying to make sure she never sees the morning. Look at me. Look at my face. Look at my hands. I am a maintenance worker. I do not have a weapon. I do not have a plan. I just have her. His weapon did not move, but his eyes did. His eyes flicked just for a second to the side, to the shoulder of his own uniform. He was wearing the gray and silver of the Royal Guard, not the red of House Varish. The Royal Guard was supposed to serve the throne itself, not Any one house. The royal guard was where the loyal one still lived, if any loyal one still lived at all. The Cathari guard stared at me for what felt like a very long time. Then slowly he lowered his weapon. Walk, he said quietly, down this corridor, take the second left, not the first. The first has cameras, the second goes to the old laundry shafts. They have been sealed for years. The seal is broken on panel 9. Do you understand? I could barely speak. Yes, I whispered. My sister served the Lady Kessa, he said. His voice was so low I almost did not hear it. Tell the heir when she is safe that the royal guard has not forgotten its oath. Tell her that not all of us have been bought. He stepped past me. He kept walking like he had never seen me at all. I stood in the corridor for one frozen second, then I started moving again. Faster now, my hand pressed against the harness where Lyra was hiding. The second left, panel 9, the old laundry shafts. Behind me, somewhere on the upper decks, I knew the regent was already standing in front of the cameras, his face full of pretend grief, telling the entire station and every world watching that a human animal had taken his beloved niece. He did not know yet that I had her. He did not know yet that she had told me what he did. And he definitely did not know yet that there were still Cathari on the station who remembered what their oaths meant. I found panel 9. The seal was indeed broken, just a hairline crack along the edge that nobody would notice unless they were looking for it. I worked my fingers under the lip and pulled. The panel came loose with a soft click. A dark shaft yawned open in front of me. I climbed in. I pulled the panel closed. Behind me, in the darkness, I heard her small voice from inside my harness. Daniel. Yes, sweetheart. You are a good human. I sat there in the dark for a long moment with the alarm still blaring through the walls and the whole station hunting my face, and I tried very hard not to cry. Then I started crawling. The shaft was narrow and dusty, and it had not been used in years. Old cobwebs broke against my face. The metal was cold under my hands. Below me the station was huge and full of enemies. And above me the regent was telling lies that would follow me to the end of my days. But the little girl in my harness had stopped trembling. She trusted me. And somewhere in the dark, between one hand grip and the next, I made her a promise without saying it out loud. I was going to get her home. I did not know how. I did not know who would. Believe me, I did not know if I would survive long enough to even try. But I was going to get her home. That was the promise. The shaft creaked softly around me as I crawled deeper into the bones of the station. Behind me the alarms kept screaming. Ahead of me the dark went on. And on. And somewhere in the upper decks, a man in red armor was learning that his niece was missing from the spot where she had been left, and he was about to start asking very dangerous questions. I crawled faster. The shaft narrowed for a moment, and I had to twist sideways to fit through. My elbow scraped against a rusted bolt. I felt warm wetness on my arm. I did not stop. I kept moving. The harness pressed against the metal walls, and I heard a tiny gasp from inside it. I am sorry, I whispered, almost through. Hold on. I pushed forward with my legs. The metal groaned. Something rattled in the shaft. Above me an old dust rained down. I held my breath. Nothing fell, nothing collapsed. The station kept its secrets For one more minute. Then the shaft opened up into a wider space and I dropped down into a forgotten room that smelled of soap that had not been made in 100 years. I sat down on the cold floor. I leaned my back against the wall. My heart was finally slowing. My arm was bleeding. But it was not bad. I would deal with it later. I opened the harness flap. Leary peeked up at me. Her small silver face was streaked with dust. Her circlet was crooked. She looked like the most fragile thing in the universe. "Are we safe now?" she whispered. I looked around the dark room. I listened. I heard nothing. No footsteps. No voices, just the hum of pipes far above us and the sound of my own breathing. "For now," I said, "for a little while." She pulled herself out of the harness and sat down next to me very close. She put her small hand on top of mine. "What happens next, Daniel?" I looked down at her hand on mine. I thought about everything I did not know. I thought about how a 6-year-old girl was asking a maintenance worker to plan an escape from the most well-guarded station in 3 star systems with the entire security force hunting his face. I thought about it for a long moment. Then I squeezed her hand back gently. "What happens next is we do something nobody is going to expect," I said, "and then we do something else, and we keep doing something else until one of those somethings works. That is the whole plan, Lyrie. We just keep moving." She was quiet for a moment, then she nodded very seriously, like a tiny queen, agreeing to a war strategy. "Okay," she said, "we keep moving." I smiled, even though my heart was still pounding and my arm was still bleeding, and the alarms were still blaring far above our heads. "Okay, sweetheart, we keep moving." I stood up. I lifted her up too. I tucked her back into the harness. Gentler this time. I checked the small map I kept on my data slate, the one with all the corridors I was not supposed to know about. There was a way to the lower cargo bays. From here, a long way, a dangerous way, but a possible way. I started walking, and somewhere far above us, the hunt for the human kidnapper was just getting started. I did not know yet that the next 24 hours would be the most dangerous of my entire life. I did not know yet that I would have to make choices I had never thought I was capable of making. I did not know yet that the small silver hand resting against my ribs was about to change everything I thought I knew about courage and family and what it meant to be human in a galaxy that had decided long ago that humans were not worth saving. I just kept walking. The station hummed around me. The pipes whispered. Somewhere far above, a man in red armor was already starting to suspect that things were not going according to his careful plan, and his face was turning from polished grief to something much colder. Daniel Carter, maintenance contractor, kidnapper of the Royal Heir. That was who I was now in the eyes of the law. But the small fingers curled inside my shirt knew the truth, and I was going to make sure the rest of the galaxy knew it too, no matter what it cost me. I just had to live long enough to do it. The cargo bays were 3 levels down. I started moving toward them, and the dark swallowed us up, and the long second day began. The laundry room ended in a door that had not been opened in decades. The lock was old, the kind of old that meant nobody had updated it because nobody had remembered it existed. I worked it open with the flat end of my wrench. It took me 4 minutes. 4 minutes felt like 4 hours. When the door finally swung loose, I peered through the crack. A long, empty service hallway stretched ahead, lit by the dim emergency strips along the floor. No cameras that I could see. No movement. I slipped through with Lyrie. I closed the door behind me. The hallway smelled like cold metal and dust, the kind of place forgotten by everyone but maintenance workers like me. I had walked this hall maybe twice in 6 years. I had not expected to walk it ever again. But here I was, carrying a princess, hunted by a regent, my face on every screen on the station. I started walking. Leah was very still inside the harness. I could feel the small, steady pulse of her breathing against my ribs. She was being so brave, braver than any 6-year-old should have to be. I made another silent promise, the second of many. When this was over, this child was going to get to be a child again. She was going to play. She was going to laugh. She was going to forget how to cry without making a sound. I would make sure of it. The hallway turned. I turned with it. And ahead of me, through a small window in a security door, I saw the wide open space of the lower cargo bay. Crates stacked 20 high, loader bots moving slow. In the half-light, a single Cathari worker at a console, his back to the door. The cargo bay was the next step. The cargo bay was where the freight shuttles came in from off-station. The cargo bay was maybe a way out. I just had to get across it without being seen. I took a slow breath. I rested my hand on the harness. "Hold on, Leah," I whispered. "Round 2. I pressed my palm against the door panel. The light blinked from red to green. My contractor code still worked. The regent had not thought to lock me out yet, or his people had not gotten to it. A small mercy, maybe my last one. The door slid open with a soft hiss. I stepped into the cargo bay, and the long, dangerous middle of my night began. The Cathari worker at the console did not turn around. The loader bots did not notice me. The crates rose around me like silent walls. I moved between them, slow and careful, keeping my head down and my pace steady. I had a plan now, a small one, a bad one, but a plan. The freight shuttles ran on a fixed schedule. There was always one being loaded for departure. If I could get to it, if I could hide us inside a crate going off station, we could be on a different world by morning. Somebody had killed Lady Kessa. Somebody was hunting a child to clear a path to a throne. Somebody had put my face on every screen in 3 star systems. And one tired human contractor with a wrench and a borrowed map was going to get the heir of the coral thrown off the station alive. That was the plan. I just had to pull it off. I slipped between 2 crates and froze. Voices ahead, 2 Cathari in red armor. I pressed my back against the cold metal of the crate. I closed my eyes for 1 second and listened. The voices were close. They were searching the bay. They were searching for me. I looked down at the harness against my chest. I felt the small heartbeat under my hand. I thought about what I was going to do next. And I started to smile, just a little in the dark, because they did not know I knew this bay better than they did. They did not know I had taped over half the cameras in here last winter when the master of works wanted to skim from the cargo manifests. They did not know about the maintenance crawlspace behind the recycling bins. They did not know they had picked the wrong human. I turned very quietly and started moving toward the bins. The voices faded behind me. The hunt was on, and for the first time since this had started, I felt something other than fear. I felt ready. Heir and I had a long night ahead of us, but I was Daniel Carter. I fixed broken things, and right now the most broken thing in this whole galaxy was the promise that had been made to a little girl when she was born, the promise that her people would keep her safe. I was going to fix it. One step at a time, one crate at a time, one whispered breath at a time. The bins were 10 ahead. The voices were getting louder again behind me. I gripped my wrench tight. I started to run. The recycling bins loomed ahead of me, big and dark and smelling of old packing foam. Behind them I knew was a thin maintenance crawl space that ran the whole length of the cargo bay wall. It was not on any official station map. I had only found it by accident 2 years ago, looking for a leak that turned out to be in a completely different sector. The voices behind me grew sharper. They had found something, a footprint maybe, a scrap of dust I had disturbed. I did not know what. I only knew I had less time than I had hoped. I reached the bins. I dropped to my knees behind them. There was a panel on the wall bolted shut with 4 old screws. I had loosened those screws myself 2 years ago, and I had never tightened them all the way back. Little piece of laziness from a younger me, finally about to save my life. I worked my fingers under the panel. I pulled. It came loose with a soft pop. The crawl space yawned dark behind it. Almost there, sweetheart, I whispered. I slid into the crawl space, feet first, and pulled the panel back into place. Behind me, in the darkness, with the sound of armored boots growing louder on the other side of the wall, I held the small, warm weight of a princess against my chest, and I started crawling toward the loading docks. The night was just beginning, and somewhere far above me, a man in red armor was about to discover that his careful plan had a very small, very stubborn human-shaped hole in it. I crawled, I breathed, I kept moving. I did not stop. The dock lights flickered far ahead at the end of the long crawl space, a pale blue glow. The shuttles. I kept moving toward them. 1 inch at a time, one quiet breath at a time, one promise at a time. Daniel Carter, maintenance worker, was going to get this little girl home, and nothing in this whole shining, cruel galaxy was going to stop him. The crawl space stretched on. The lights ahead grew slowly closer, and in the dark behind me, I heard the armored boots stop, hesitate, and finally turn away. For 1 more minute, we were safe. I kept crawling. The Ari pressed her small face against my chest, and I felt her smile, even though I could not see it, a tiny, brave smile in the dark. We were going to be okay. We had to be. The shuttle dock was close now, and whatever waited for us there, I would face it, because the alternative was a galaxy where men in red armor decided which children got to grow up. And I was not going to let that be the galaxy I lived in. Not tonight. Not ever. I crawled faster, with the air to the coral throne breathing softly against my heart, and the long night closing in around us both. The shuttle dock was 20 ahead, then 10, then 5. I reached the end of the crawl space. I pressed my ear against the panel. I listened. Voices on the other side, calm, ordinary workers loading crates. No armored boots, no alarms. I worked my fingers under the panel 1 more time. The doc waited. The story was about to change. But that, as they say, is a tale for tomorrow. Tonight I just had to get through this door, find a crate and get us both onto a shuttle going somewhere. Anywhere away from the station. Tonight I just had to keep moving. And so I did. I pushed the panel open and slipped out into the cold blue light of the loading dock with a princess in my harness and the whole galaxy on my back, and I started walking like I belonged there. Because for tonight, I did belong there. I was the only thing standing between a 6-year-old girl and a man who wanted her gone. And that, it turned out, was the most important job I had ever had. The dock was busy. Workers in coveralls. Loader bots beeping, a row of freight shuttles humming at their berths. I kept my head down. I walked toward the third shuttle from the left, the one with the open cargo door and the half-empty hold. Nobody looked at me twice. Nobody stopped me. I reached the shuttle. I stepped inside. I found a tall crate with a loose lid. I opened it. It was full of soft packing material and a single sealed box at the bottom. I climbed in. I closed the lid above me. I curled up in the soft packing with Lyrie pressed against my chest. The shuttle hummed. The cargo door closed. The engines began to warm up. I held the small warm weight of a princess against my heart, and I closed my eyes, and for the first time in 3 hours I let myself breathe all the way out. We had done it. For now. The shuttle lifted off. I felt the small shift of gravity. I felt the station fall away beneath us. In the dark of the crate, Lyrie whispered, "Daniel." "Yes, sweetheart." "Where are we going?" I thought about that for a long moment. I did not actually know. The shuttle could be going anywhere. Another station, a planet, a way station in deep space. But I knew one thing. We are going somewhere safe, I whispered, or if it is not safe yet, we are going to make it safe, together. Okay. A small nod against my chest. Okay, Daniel. The shuttle hummed on into the dark. And the long second day, the day that would test every part of who I was about to begin. But that, as I said, is a tale for tomorrow. For tonight I had a sleeping princess on my chest and a tiny pocket of safety in a crate full of packing foam, and a promise I had already started to keep. It was enough. For now it was enough.